what does it really matter? Since I called for the listing and I got some random person who doesn't know the apartment. Right. Like, listen, not every agent's a good salesperson. Not every agent knows how to talk to somebody. If you don't implement AI into your business, you're lost. You will definitely fail at some point because it's like anything else. You have to continue innovating. As a businessman, we're all entrepreneurs to some capacity. It's part of the hard work. Every Saturday, Sunday, I would try to keep free for the open house hours. I would visit every building that was in the market that I was working at a buyer in. So I would visit every building, see the apartment, learn about the apartment, see the amenities that it's offering, study the neighborhood if it was a townhouse, see what restaurants are in the area, what trains are in the area, what parks are in the area, what daycares if it was a big enough townhouse because they're gonna have families and kids. You have to educate yourself to a point where you bring so much value, they want to pay you more. Right. And that's what I did when I was a buyer's agent.
¿Qué lo que? Mi gente, Rafael Reyes en la casa.
Yo, we on the fucking Omega?
I'm gonna come up with a good one.
Like, go again.
Take two. Yo, what's up, fellas?
Let's give him the chance now. Let's see.
Let's say we start. Let's say.
Hold on. We never did that. This is not gonna be the first time we actually gonna fucking take it back.
We're not taking it back. All right. We're not taking it back.
Guys, we gotta train each other.
But yo, what's up? How you been? How you guys been?
they're in utter shock with your introduction.
It's been a minute, guys.
I'm good, bro. I'm good, man.
It's been a week.
Yeah.
I think we got a really good episode today.
Yes, sir.
Like we always do.
It's a hot topic.
We always say that.
Yeah, but no, this,
I feel like every week it gets better.
This is one of the hottest topics right now at the moment.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
with the things that's going on. So Reyes, go ahead, kick it off. What?
Absolutely. I'm not doing this scale okay. I said it's done. I'm gonna come up with my own introduction. It's gonna be the hottest thing on social media. You're gonna
you
see
got
it.
it.
Okay. I promise y'all. So here's the deal. Introducing my guy,
What's
Dave Fernandez here. We go back a little bit. Every guest we have, we go back.
We go way back.
We go back.
How back into time?
2015.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dave and I have a unique story though. We got a unique story. So I met Dave through an attorney. I crashed a condo open house that you were having.
I was doing like a broker open house. Yeah.
So
I thought you literally crashed.
So the attorney says, "Hey,
he
go."
crashed it.
I did. I crashed it. I come with a bottle of champagne. I think it was
champagne.
We hung out there. Nobody showed up to the open house outside of us. I think
it was raining. It was
he just threw you under the bus. He's nobody
He's
showed up.
not even lying. It was empty. I was embarrassed. I even apologized to him like 10 times. Like, bro, I don't know what the fuck happened.
Speak the truth.
Make a long story short, it was a really poorly executed broker open that I tried to do last minute, and the rain didn't help.
But out of that one, kind of not so good situation came out a great business relationship and a great friendship.
Nice.
We ended up buying a building down in downtown Brooklyn. Dave, we met that day. We hit it off. We really liked each other. So bought this downtown Brooklyn brownstone.
Well, that's the one, Ray?
Yeah.
That's the one?
You know what's funny? He's acting like he didn't make me beg for the business. I had to wine and dine him. He had to get to know me a little bit.
It was a big deal, dude. So we picked up the building for $2 million. We did a full gut reno, and Dave played a vital piece in a lot of it. He did charge me quite a bit of money, but it's okay.
But he earned it.
But he earned it.
I think it was like 6% or something.
I saw like cellos in the open house. There was some good stuff there.
Listen, I invested time and money.
Listen, I gotta say the man earned every nickel of that commission check. Right. So out of that came a great friendship. I learned a lot from him. I think he learned a little bit from me now. He's developing out in Jersey.
Yeah.
All right. He's done a few projects down there. He's also one of the top new development agents in New York City. So now that we are entering a new phase in this real estate industry, seems like the entire real estate industry is under attack, especially buyer agent commissions, right? So this is where things get a little gray. Dave, running a big team over at Serhant, has very unique insight in letting us know how he's going to position his business in this new environment moving forward. At first, as Ray said, I told him, this sucks, this is crazy, it's terrible. But after reading further personally and doing some research, I put up a post the other day. It could be a good thing, but we're gonna hear from the man himself over here, who's done a couple $100 million in transactions.
A couple?
And,
Wow. It's like over $500 million, bro.
What? Excuse me.
I mean, a couple,
$500 million.
Over $500 million.
Why you
What's
trying
a couple $100
Why you trying to dumb it
Just to
down?
clarify, in 2022 I did 180. So
All right, fine.
All right.
What's the biggest sale you ever had?
the
All right,
big,
but wait, come on. Wait.
wait.
That's
Hold
later.
on.
That's later.
Hold on,
All right,
hit it.
so before we
Is
get
it
there,
still-
Dave,
Plug in our sponsor.
Is it still?
before we,
it's not your property.
so all right, so tell us.
Moving forward.
Thank you for the great introduction to Dave. Right?
I'm not done.
Oh, my bad. I'm
All right.
sorry.
So go ahead.
What?
That's gonna take all our
You guys
time.
take all my thing. But
I'm
anyway,
sorry.
Go.
All right, so Dave, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you get into the real estate and then into the development game?
So I'll make this as quick as possible.
Yes.
I was
your time.
I was in construction before I got into real estate sales. Actually, before that, I was in mortgages. But make a long story short, I decided to move away from the construction business and pursue a passion of mine, which was the cafe business. I wanted to open a tea and coffee shop, and I did that in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn. I had it for 5 years, but in the middle of it, I opened a second location in Chelsea, started struggling. My brother, who was my partner, was not really loving the business anymore. It takes a lot from you. Restaurant business are very difficult, and yes, you can make money, but unfortunately, you're like a slave to the business. So I wasn't making enough money. I had a wife that we just had a first baby, my baby boy. And then we find out that she's pregnant having the second baby, which is my baby girl. And I was like, all right, well, I'm definitely not making enough money to give the lifestyle I want for my family and what the lifestyle I'm looking for. So let me figure something out. Let me do something. And I decided to get my license. I actually got it when I was younger, but reactivated it because I think I worked as a broker for 4 months when I was 19. But just long story, but I got taken advantage of. And then I didn't understand the business well enough to stay in it. So that's why I went to mortgages. But I got into real estate. I got my license. I worked for a small company in the city, 100% commission. I was super excited, like, 100% commission.
yeah.
But I knew nothing. Right. So the broker was like, listen, because you know nothing, we're gonna give you a mentor. We're gonna make you, we're gonna show you how the ropes are and show you how this business works and blah 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 blah. Make a long story short, I went from 100 million to 50%.
From 100% to 50%.
Yes, from 100% to 50% because I knew nothing.
Because you knew nothing.
And and the funny thing is that you go into this business, you're like, I'm gonna kill it. You get some clothes. You think you know what you know what you gotta do. You gotta look good. You gotta be presentable. You gotta go out. I mean, I think I basically took 3 months to realize that whatever I thought I knew, I didn't. And I need to figure out a new strategy. So I didn't know enough to go network properly. So I realized that I need to just start hitting the phones. So I started hitting the phones. I started buying Zillow leads. And that's when I finally saw the success. My first year in the business, all from Zillow leads, was $29 million in sales.
Wow.
Working the buyer market.
Wow.
Which is very, very difficult. And I was a solo agent. I didn't have a team. So 29 million is a lot for someone that's literally working the buyers 7 days a week. You have no break.
So no personal listings. You're
Just
you're going after buyers.
Straight up buyers.
Just
agent.
showing them
You're
houses.
just taking people out, showing them whatever
Yeah.
they're looking at, properties that they're wanting to see.
Taking them out to see 15 listings in one day.
Right.
5 or 6 times a week. Because back then Zillow didn't have all these issues with the leads. There weren't a lot of brokers doing it. So I would pay $400 and get 10, 15 leads a week.
Wow.
Nice.
Now you pay $7,000 and get 10, 15 leads a month. It's a different business.
Different business.
That's margin expansion.
Perfect
right
timing
there.
for you. I mean, it's great that you're actually mentioning that, but when you start looking into it, because usually the turnaround time varies per state, by state, right?
Correct.
So for you to take a lead and turn it into a conversion of a closing sale, would you say that was the time frame, what, 90 days, 120 days, and how many hours are you allocating on a weekly basis to these clients?
So I was definitely allocating probably anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day. Different buyers, obviously. My first deal, which was a big deal, it was for anybody in the business, was a $2 million 4-family in Red Hook, Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. And what year was this?
This was 2012.
This
Were
was
you still
prior
sharing 50%?
gentrification when basically Red Hook was not what it is.
Correct. Well, it was already going through changes. So the funny thing how life works, I opened a cafe in Carroll Gardens on the corner of 9th and Court. That's literally a few blocks from Red Hook. I saw potential in the location, but believe it or not, it never, whatever I thought was going to happen with the train down the block on Smith and the area to change, it never happened when I was in business. It happened now. It's happening now.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what's so funny that on State Street, I told you the cafe we had was on the corner over.
Yeah.
Right.
Was
Right
that
up
crazy?
from Barclays, and it was the same thing. I'm like, holy smokes, this area is gonna blow up. Just ahead of it's all timing.
You know what's funny?
Sometimes you're ahead of your game.
Ahead of the game.
I mean,
So
I was so ahead of the game. I was doing matcha lattes in 2011.
Matcha.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I think I was
I was
doing
doing
matcha like 2017.
I was doing kombucha in 2011.
Goodness.
I was doing nitro coffee in 2013.
So what can we do now that we can actually be like, yo, we're
Yeah, but
7
what a
years?
secret. Hey,
What I realized is that it's good to be informative. Like I traveled to Vegas to these tea conventions, coffee conventions. I traveled with my mom. My mom was part of the business. My brother. It actually united us, which was probably the best part of the business.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Most businesses separate families, man.
You know what's crazy? I was the only investor, and I borrowed a lot of money from a lot of people and even the banks. And because of how much it did for me and my family in regards to like uniting us, putting us together. Like my sister was there supporting us. My other brother was there supporting us. My younger brother was there working with me, you know, in the grind. And then my mom would just like pretty much do whatever we needed her to do. And it just like, it brought us all together, and we all live in different places at the time. So the fact that the cafe did that was like a blessing in itself.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I wanted to cry when I realized how much money I lost, but that's a whole other story.
Okay. All right. So now you get your biggest deal in Red Hook, $2 million.
Yes.
You're still in that 50% situation where you're sharing 50% of your commission.
Yes, and that's the worst part about it.
Okay.
So
that hurts.
I had a mentor, and I'm sure he'll appreciate this, John Jordan. He was the top producing JJ. He was a top producing agent at this company called the Spire Group. And you know, he took me under his wing. He was the one doing the Zillow leads. He was killing it. I mean, this guy, I was like, wow, how's he doing it with this bullshit? You know?
Right.
So I obviously followed his steps after I realized that he's onto something. I mean, he put me on. And you know, I wasn't happy because it was like, John Jordan is not making any money from this. Well, at least from what I know of. The broker of the office is. But I'm like, what did he really do? He connected me with someone in the office who already makes 100% commission, and him and I hit it off where we worked together and fed ideas off each other, where I was able to then go into that aspect of the business. So like I was a little bit pissed off after I realized that this is like I think at the time it was 3%, so like 60 grand.
Wow.
So I'm giving 30,000 up. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is not okay. and the crazy part is it was not just one deal. I got that one into contract. And then like 2 weeks later, got another $1.2 million apartment into contract.
Wow.
So Zillow was like magic for me.
Right.
I was like, I got $3.5 million in contract. I just started. So, and obviously when I saw the commission, I was like, I wasn't even thinking about the 50%. I just 100% was like, yo, that's crazy money, you know?
Right.
So I was super excited. And then obviously the time came, I closed on the units and I was like, oh, I have to give 50%.
You forgot about that little part.
That sucks. And what nobody knows is that 50% hurt because I got into credit card debt.
Right.
I borrowed money. I mean, I did everything I had to do because my mentality was, if I'm going into this business, I got to go all out.
All right. So what were you driving? Because I know it starts there, right?
It's funny, right?
Oh,
You ready for this?
What were you driving?
So I was driving a Jeep Cherokee.
okay.
And as soon as I got
The contract.
my license,
Oh, okay.
No, my license, I said, what do I want? What do I see myself driving? CLS 550. As soon as it went into contract, I fucking went for it.
Love it.
And I got a CLS 550, and then I bought suits and shirt and everything you needed to have. I even had
You were a super agent.
Yeah, I was a super agent. The only thing I didn't have was the watch. At
And,
the time,
and also the Netflix cameras following you around.
Like Ari Gold type.
but you know what's crazy? Like I didn't have the watch. And I didn't know how important it was until like a 6 months into the business.
Oh, you don't want our friend here talking about importance of watches.
Don't look at me.
No, our shorty.
Oh.
Hey, you gotta have a watch if you go into a meeting. You gotta have the watch.
So I had a Tag Heuer that one of my exes gave me. It's like a $1,200 watch. I thought it was sick. I thought
More than
it was
enough, right? Like,
amazing.
I got this.
And I went to a meeting with some investors because I actually transitioned from a buyer's agent into working with developers and investors. I started networking more, partying more, and it was just a different way to get business. But that's
you said something, and I'm sorry to cut you off. Partying is networking.
Yes.
I just want to.
Networking.
I just want to make.
Can we
amplify?
Can we
amplify?
emphasize the message?
Partying is networking.
It's called networking.
Okay.
called networking.
In our business of sales, it is networking.
Networking.
And the
Very
more you
important.
party,
The more money you make.
No, the more you networking, the more you're networking.
listen.
Sorry, I had to throw
By
that
the way,
out
the
there.
funny thing is that I tell my wife all the time, babe, I gotta go network. And she's like, network, have dinners, drink good alcohol,
Yes.
then go to a club or a bar or whatever you guys do, smoke cigars, smoke hookah, whatever. Like, that's not networking. That's having a good time. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go have a good time.
All right, so
So where we at?
So
watches.
the importance of the watches.
Oh, so I went to a meeting with a big time developer, and I'd never even thought about that being an issue. It wasn't really an issue, but he needed to point it out, which made me feel like complete shit. He's like, listen, do me a favor. If we're gonna work together,
wow,
you gotta
Leave the tag at home?
straight up. He's like,
Whoa.
no, he leave the tag at home, but he was
don't,
like,
don't wear anything.
he's like, don't. Yeah, he goes,
Just don't wear it.
don't even wear that. 'Cause
Wow.
that's just embarrassing. I'm like, what the fuck?
Ouch.
Like, that was the first time in my life that I ever felt ashamed,
humiliated.
completely. And I'm a very confident person, so he brought my ego way down.
Wow.
So yeah. So I
What was he wearing?
he was wearing a Rolex. At the
Okay.
time, I didn't even remember what Rolex,
Right,
but it was a Rolex. So fast forward like 2 weeks in, my closing happens. The car's already on its way, and I'm like, it's time for an upgrade. So it's time for a watch.
Torno.
So
on
no,
my
I
way.
got an AP.
Oh my!
So you went at AP.
I got
what,
a
in
used AP.
13 or 14?
I paid 13.5.
No, I'm saying like this was 2013.
This
or
is
14?
2013.
Yeah.
So I got an AP used, which back then there was deals. Today there aren't. And I was rocking that AP. And then I thought I got it. I know what I'm doing. But you know what the crazy part again is? I had the rubber band on the AP.
Oh.
And I wore it with a suit. And I got called
and then
out
you got called out again.
That's crazy.
So I'm like, no, I'm rocking a $14,000 watch. What are you talking about?
Was it the offshore?
Huh?
The offshore?
Offshore, yeah. So so then I got a quick lesson, and I was like, all right, I gotta upgrade again. So I worked my ass off for the next few deals, and my first, so that year ended, I did 29 million. I bought myself a rose gold sky dweller with the champagne dial. That was a
That's
big
sexy.
That's
big
what
boy.
you just got, right?
Big boy.
Nah, I got the
That's
Prezi
it.
with a champagne
Oye,
dial.
el otro. I'm just humble. Bro.
He's like, nah, I don't.
No, I like the sky dweller. I just,
He's like, I'm into classics.
Yo, look at me.
it's funny you mentioned that, but
with
it's
the
like,
rubber, with the rubber band.
so no, it's funny that you mentioned watches and like I love watches, right? So, and a lot of my friends love watches here. Mr. Reyes, love watches himself. He got Wimbledon over here. But when we start looking into it, I pretty much resonate with what Kevin Hart does, right? So he look at watches as kind of like this year I'm going to bust my ass. And whatever is it that I accomplished this year, I'm going to reward myself with something that I've always wanted, right? So he takes it like into the accolade and say, this is a watch that's going to represent whatever wins that he had.
100%.
Right? So that's kind of like how I look at things. It is good also for collateral in terms of like, if you have a down year or whatever that may be, you don't want to liquidate your assets.
And you
or
gotta
whatever,
buy
but if you
milk
have
and
to-
diapers. You
You know what I mean?
Let's get back to the topic. All right, so real estate.
Yeah. We're here about real estate, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're having too much of a good time here.
Yes.
This is a lot of fun. But we came here to get answers to specific
To Kansas City.
questions.
Was it Kansas City?
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
The lawsuit was in Kansas City,
Oh,
right?
he's actually right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
Kansas City.
Missouri,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're here to talk
All
about.
we're here to talk about this buyer's agent.
You know what?
So-
I thought that you was making fun of him because he was a San Francisco fan.
No.
Kansas
Oh, the
City
Niners.
won.
Oh, wow. He's still not living the Super Bowl
He
down.
was crying, dog. Jesus Christ.
All right. Sorry about that.
So-
Rob.
so I-
So you know
what's
what?
up with
I
all-
want you guys to actually ask the questions
Yes.
because you guys are not in the business, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, let's get back
So-
on track.
let's get
It's funny. So when this thing happened, you know, I sent it over to Reyes and Ray and everything. I was like, yo, what's going on with this whole real estate situation,
Yeah.
right? Because it's kind of like a hot topic. And this was before it started hitting the social media. And my understanding is more like, currently we all know that if you're looking to buy a home at this current moment, the seller is pretty much paying for the buyer's representation.
Yep.
Right? Which I didn't understand then, but it was like, I'm selling my house. Why I gotta pay for this person? But now the story's changing, right? So basically,
Well, let's start at the beginning.
the
Yeah,
proposal, the
so
So
proposal's
what happened
changing,
with
right?
this lawsuit in Kansas City?
So, NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors,
Right.
which, by the way, I am not a member of.
Okay.
Because in New York, we have Rebney, an
Right.
independent-owned company, and that's what I'm a member of. But I'm sure they're gonna adapt some things at some point. I'm not being affected as of yet, but I know enough about the topic because everyone's talking about it and everyone's even calling for advice and having conversations about this. So they decided basically that brokers were not being transparent and the way they were pitching their services to sellers. And the bigger problem with all of this is not just that. And it's funny because, Rafael called me about this. He's like, hey, I want you to come on this podcast so we could talk about this. And at the time, I had a different idea of all of it. But then I did some homework and some research and I realized, there's more to it. The problem is that these brokers, especially in areas that are not like main cities,
Like metropolises, right?
or even Long Island,
Right.
or Staten Island, or
Right.
Jersey, they are collecting 6%, which is nothing wrong with 6%, because at the end of the day, we're salespeople.
Right.
So whatever we want is because that's what we feel is our worth, is our value.
Yeah.
We bring certain things to the table, so pay us. Okay. But the problem is that they're getting 6% and they're telling sellers, I'm going to split this 50-50 if I sell it with the buyer's agent. But in reality, these agents are putting on the MLS that they're paying 1.5%
Right.
or 2% and taking 4%,
Taking
or
4,
more,
okay.
which is not the right way
Right.
of doing business. There's no transparency. there.
So all right. So backstory, and correct me if I'm wrong. Sellers get together and they sue the NAR, right?
Correct.
Right. So in Kansas City, a bunch of sellers
But they
got
didn't just
together.
sue NAR. They sued NAR, Keller Williams.
Right,
Douglas
Keller Williams,
Elliman.
right.
They sued everybody.
Yeah, so they sued
And
everybody.
They got a landmark
And basically
settlement, yeah.
saying, hey, we were being gypped and we were overpaying commission, or they weren't set forth transparently.
Correct.
Right. So they won.
Correct.
Right. Which is
What was
happened.
the win? Like 400 mil?
No, 1
Billions.
1.2
Billion.
billion.
Yeah.
Billion.
But they originally were suing for 5-point-something billion.
$1 billion, right?
Yeah, it's
So they settled for a reason.
big
because it's-
judgment. Yeah.
Right. And
Big
then
money.
and NAR, there are some states that require agents to be affiliated with NAR, and then there are some states
Yes.
that it's optional, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, yes, correct. Yes.
Okay.
Which is ironic. I want to add, NAR is probably one of the biggest lobbyists
Right.
in Washington.
Right.
So to see kind of this transpire, it was kind of surprising.
Well, the reason NAR is the biggest is they have the most members.
most members,
Not
yeah.
just realtors.
Yeah.
Any real estate professional is a member of NAR.
Can be a
basically.
member of
Can
NAR,
be a
right.
member
Right.
of NAR. Yes. So appraisers, mortgage brokers, whoever.
Right.
Now,
Didn't they recognize you? Was it NAR that recognized you? No. No. There was somebody else. Nahas? No. Somebody
Nah, it
recognized
was
you.
NAREP. NAREP.
What are the
Nah,
benefits?
right.
What are the benefits in terms of being a member of NAR? Like, is there any particular benefits?
It's just basically controlling policies and ethics, making sure that you're operating a certain way. The membership that I have is Rebney. It's the same thing.
It's like a badge.
Yeah.
Also, it gives you credibility, right? Like
Correct.
in the
It gives you
industry, like
credibility.
I'm a NAR member.
But the reason why NAR is so big is because they also own the platform MLS.
Right.
Which is
MLS.
the multiple listing services, which is what every brokerage used 50 years ago.
Right.
And then obviously some new companies came up with new software, new ways to do things, and platforms changed, but NAR has the most presence.
Right.
Because they're they're nationwide.
And I think they
Gotcha.
still feed a lot of these like Zillows and Realtor or like Redfin. Don't they still
Truly,
like?
yeah.
Doesn't
Yes.
MLS
Yes,
still
They
and-
syndicate. Yeah.
The MLS is
right.
still very, very big
Right.
in most markets. Obviously, it's changed a little bit in some of the major cities because some new companies have come up with their own technology, their own platforms, their own whatever, and they're pushing a different agenda. But at the end of the day, that's why Revenue came about.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a different company that still controls how you operate as a broker to make sure you don't do anything illegal.
Gotcha.
So
Well, Rebney primarily focuses on Manhattan, parts of Brooklyn.
correct.
Right.
And there's other companies like that.
Yeah, got
in
it.
Right,
other
like more
cities.
boutiques,
Yeah,
small,
yeah, yeah.
right? Disruptors. let's
Correct.
call them.
Disruptors. Exactly.
Right. All right. So okay. So these sellers sell. They win this lawsuit, right? And now everybody's going like, "Oh my God, who's gonna represent seller? Who's gonna represent buyers?" I know my first conversation with Rafael was like, "This is the worst thing ever because who's gonna represent first-time home buyers, right? Because now." The seller doesn't want to pay commission, or they're only going to pay a certain amount of commission to the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
So now the seller, the buyer's going to come and say, well, I want to buy a house. And, so I remember asking Rafael, well, who's going to represent them? Their lawyer? Like, are they going to start paying a fee when
Or
they
you
start,
could actually
when they're gonna
buy it
look for a
online too,
house?
though, right? Like,
Well, I mean, my concern was that first-time home buyers, they require a lot of hand-holding. I mean, Dave.
I mean, an immense amount of
immense amount of
hand-holding.
hand-holding.
And I got to be honest, real estate attorneys don't get paid enough
they
for
don't
that.
get paid enough.
no, they don't.
And no real estate attorney's gonna really invest the amount
Right.
of time necessary. I mean, Dave could probably attest. You probably get calls 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday to answer.
Listen, when I was
questions.
working buyers, I had no life. Like literally, I had
He
no
sounds
life.
so depressed saying it.
It was depressing. You know why? Because like I would go out to dinner with my family or my wife, and I would have to step out multiple times to take on a call because if I didn't do that, I
lost
would
the sale.
lose the
You
client.
would lose them, yeah.
But
They-
don't they sign the contract? Like my understanding
No,
is
no,
if I
no,
sign
no,
the
no,
Only
contract,
for the properties
So-
that you show them.
So one, they sign the contract for what you show them. There is a disclosure to be exclusive, but at the end of the day, they could somehow figure out and go somewhere else. But if you want to keep the client, you got to be 100% available. It's 24/7, and this is why for me this is a very, very difficult topic because I don't agree with what's been agreed upon. I do understand why it happened.
Right.
But you cannot work with a listing agent, a seller's agent, direct if you are a first-time home buyer.
So what was the settlement? All right. So now after they filed, so now there's a settlement that has been reached, right?
Well,
Or-
there's
or
a
a
settlement that has
proposed
been
settlement.
reached, but now you've created a situation where this is a new protocol because now everyone's worried about the next $1 billion lawsuit.
Right.
So now everybody begins to adjust their practices, and that's what everyone's been doing,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know, what you guys are doing at Surham, but everybody's adjusting their legalities and how they approach working with buyers. I think you're not supposed to list commissions on MLS anymore for buyers agents.
So you can't list commissions on MLS for buyers agents anymore.
So this is part of that settlement.
correct.
All right.
that's
so,
their reaction to the
all
settlement.
right. So what's the reaction? So you can't list commission.
Yeah.
What else?
You can't list commission. Period.
Okay.
And it's 3% max.
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 Period.
Max.
So
but you can negotiate at a lower rate. Can you?
Yeah, 3% max.
No,
Wait, 3%.
no, can you actually
seller's
be like-
agent?
to the seller's agent.
Okay.
3%. That's it. There's no more of the 6%.
Okay.
So 3%, and if there's a buyer's agent, they got to split.
No.
No, you got to
No,
pay out of
that's
pocket.
separate.
Yes, okay.
So this
yeah.
is what the problem is.
There we go.
So the seller's agent is getting 3%. If there's a buyer's agent, they have to basically negotiate either with the seller's agent, but the seller's agent, to be, smart, will need to make sure that the seller understands that the buyer's agent might want commission. And if that's the case, you're gonna have to be willing to pay that commission.
Right.
So again, it's all about transparency.
Right.
That's what it's about.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
After research,
Right.
I thought it was going to be a good thing. I think buyers agents are probably going to bring a little bit more value to the marketplace.
I think
to be
there's more
honest with you.
opportunities for
Yeah.
the buyer's agent, right? Because there's still
Right.
room
Well,
for the buyer's agent to
I
negotiate.
think it's gonna hurt. Initially, it's gonna hurt the buyer's agent because now sellers are already feeling some sort of way. There's a lack of supply.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lack of supply, and these buyer agents are working hard to get their clients a property, and they're losing out on these bids. There's bidding wars, or prices are too high, whatever it may be. Buyers are having a hard time. So I think right now buyer agents are definitely going to feel it. They're gonna feel hardship in the business. To be honest with you, as someone that's in the business and knows how many agents out there are not professional and don't have the experience or the knowledge to represent anyone, I think it's a good thing. It's gonna cut out the fat.
It's gonna weed them out.
I'm gonna say
Cut the fat. I like that.
yeah. So
might be the
I'm
name
a
of
big
the
I'm
episode.
a big fan of that.
I've always and I'm not saying this is the correct train of thought, but I've always looked at the real estate profession or the realtor agent profession like the travel agent profession, where the travel agents are becoming a little bit more and more like, now you have boutique travel agents,
Correct.
right? Which is like very high end, customized experiences, and they sell you a whole package, right? But I remember when my mom used to go to the corner travel agent to book their trip to DR, right?
Yeah,
So
I remember that.
they
too.
land
Right.
travel.
Physical paper.
you get a physical, boarding pass at the trail at the travel. So then, Rafael and I had this conversation a few years ago actually, because Zillow was getting into the game of actually buying your house without even looking at it, right? Like, send me a couple pictures, answer a few questions, we'll give you an offer within like a couple days, right? And then New York was like, Rafael was like, it's not gonna happen in New York. It's very difficult. The prices change from block to block. It's just not gonna happen.
It's very difficult.
Right. And he proved to be right, because a couple years later, then they started downsizing that whole
Downsizing
or like
They
eliminating.
failed miserably.
It failed, right? But then I see like the real estate, because I'm personally like, the first house I bought, it was like no realtor, no buyer, no seller, because I happened to go through like a for sale by owner.
Okay.
And I was always like, oh, well, I'm just gonna look at Redfin and Realtor and
So
Zillow.
you're that guy, Fizbos?
Yeah.
You get great deals like that.
It wasn't about commission. It was just more about like, I just dove into the research and I was like, let me look for houses and let me do this, right? And then like in recent purchases, like I look for houses and then I send it to my realtor. I'll be like, hey, I saw this. Hey, I saw that, right? So it changed from like the realtor saying, all right, we're gonna take Saturday afternoon to look at these 3 houses that fit the criteria, right? That you kind of are looking for.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why did you start sending it to the realtor?
Well, no, just because.
I know the answer.
Right. Well, no.
He started making more money now. He could afford the realtor.
No. I know. No. I don't.
But not only that, time is money, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So
man.
he doesn't have the same time he had
Exactly.
when he first
Right,
started
to
looking.
contact, right, yeah, because that no, and I think that no, I don't want this to come across like, yo, the agent is obsolete. I think they provide
the
a
agent-
wonderful service, right? What I always looked at it was as a, hey, if you have access now to MLS, right? Because before you didn't,
Yeah.
most of the time, like and through these platforms that have, like, and then I say, okay, Redfin's like Orbitz, or like the Realtor is like Expedia, right?
Yeah.
You could just go yourself, you could do your research. And then but it hasn't happened as fast as I thought it was gonna happen. And I think it's because of the nuances of like contracting and contacting and also when you call like a house that's listed, the seller's agent tells you right away, hey, who's representing you?
Yeah.
Like, who's your realtor? Like,
Well, look,
are you a realtor?
that's exactly the problem, right? Like for example, buyers don't know the amount of exposure they have when they're going to a listing agent. I know a lot of agents, I know a lot of good friends, but the listing agent's fiduciary responsibility.
Fiduciary.
Is,
We all
is,
understood,
is,
bro.
is to the
It's
seller.
not FIDA.
It's fiduciary.
No, it's fiduciary.
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 Tomato.
But it's to the seller, right? So
Wait,
if
guys,
you're
are we
a-
professionals?
if so
We're in the
So
street.
Dave, how would you handle that now, right? A buyer comes to you directly, right? Well, no. How would you advise one of your buyer's agents to handle that situation if they were, in this specific environment?
You're saying like a buyer comes without an agent?
No, if one
I-
of your buyer's agents
If
is,
my buyer agent has a client that wants to work with them, but
Correct.
now we're falling into this category of
it's
how do
gonna
we
cost
get
them
paid?
extra $5,000 to or $10,000 or
Or
$20,000.
in New York, like 30,000.
30,000, depending
Right.
where it is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're buying, right?
Correct.
So
Listen, I think every agent that's going to be dealing with buyers needs to understand how to sell themselves properly. There's no buyer, I hate to say this, but there's no buyer that's going to want to pay a buyer's agent because it was never that way before. The funny thing is that buyers go into this process with the understanding that they want to buy something, but they don't realize that the sellers are going to pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that it's happening, buyers are getting upset because what do you mean I have to pay for it?
Right.
But you didn't know that. You didn't even
But
know that
you've
to
been
begin
paying
with.
for it, right.
So what does it matter? I'm not paying $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 to buy a property. That's crazy. So buyers are gonna have a hard time, and they're gonna go to the sellers. That's what's gonna happen. And the listing agent now has a conflict because he represents the seller first and then the buyer, and he can't even like negotiate.
Right.
So that's why a buyer agent is always going to have value. Now it's up to the agent to let the buyer know, these are the things I'm going to bring to the table and how I'm going to represent you and how I'm going to get you the deal you want. I'm going to negotiate. I'm going to obviously invest time to look up what the listings that you're looking for, understand your criteria, and you don't need to worry about anything. I'll send you a list of properties we're going to look at and blah, blah, blah. So an agent needs to do their job to show that what their value is. Now, a smart agent is going to obviously have a contract signed saying that I'm representing you, and if I can't collect a commission from the seller, then you're gonna have to pay me at the closing.
So do you see this as a realistic scenario? Because the more we dig into this, the more research I've done, I could see any buyer's agent completely shifting their approach to become seller's agents, right? And then I could see the market going
Trending
through
differently.
Redfin or Zillow and saying, hey, I'm looking to buy this house. And then that seller agent becoming like the sole agent of the transaction. Is that something that you see or is this something that I'm missing in the process where that scenario doesn't really seem feasible?
So it does happen,
Right.
where a buyer just doesn't care about negotiating. A buyer doesn't care about what it's going to cost them because they want the property. They want the property.
Right.
They want to be in that
Those are
location.
emotional decisions.
It's an emotional decision, correct. It's like when
Especially
you go to a
first-time home
dealership
buyers.
to look around and you end up walking out with a car,
Right.
right?
You go for the C. You go for the C class and you end up with the CLS.
Correct. So the point is that like I don't see this happening. I mean, right now we have dual disclosures where buyers obviously sign that they're going to be represented by the seller, listing agent, whatever, and those deals happen. Those deals don't happen often.
Right.
Okay.
But I think that will also saturate the market if you're switching from the buyers to the sellers,
It will.
and then the limit of supply.
It will
Well,
unbalance
no,
the market.
it'll what in the scenario I'm painting, and I don't know how real that
It will be
scenario
more
could
technology
be.
based.
But it'll if
the buyer.
if agents shift to becoming
Sellers.
only sellers agents, and there's a lack of inventory like there is today, then you're gonna have a bunch of agents that are not gonna have listings,
Who's
right?
willing to actually take the less commission or whatever for in terms of negotiation.
And then that becomes a
Competition
whole
gets
nother
real.
thing, right?
I mean,
So
Competition will get
it'll be
real.
interesting to see that. But do you also see this?
I
to
mean,
be
we
the-
don't want to see that.
we don't know how everything is gonna unfold, right? But do you foresee this to be a little bit more on the segmented market? Like for instance, some metro areas may actually experience this more as opposed to like go more into like different states.
Or
like,
maybe less.
more or
I
less,
think
yeah.
for right now, yes. I think in the future these changes will happen. Again, I don't see how a buyer's agent will not be part of a deal, most deals, because there's way too many people that are already have relationships. Like me, for example, in New Jersey, I bought a house through an agent, and I'm gonna hire her, but I'm gonna want top dollar, and in order to get top dollar, she needs to be
Market
able
the
to
property.
market
Do
the
everything
property
to anyone.
and bring anyone possible.
Right.
If it happens to be an agent with a buyer,
Right.
then let it be.
At the end of the day, what I think people fail to understand is, and I think sellers misunderstood this too, is it's what you net from the transaction. Whether you're paying a buyer's agent, seller's agent, another agent, 5 agents, if whoever's cooperating you to facilitate and procure you the highest offer that nets you the most in your pocket, who cares who you got to pay?
Yeah, but think about the buyer.
You understand? No, I get the buyer. What I'm saying is that ultimately, I think that if the buyer's agents are able to help the seller obtain a higher net price in their pocket, inclusive of their commission,
So they'll be willing
they
to
will
pay
be
that
willing
extra
to
commission.
work with the buyer.
I got you.
It becomes a math problem at that point. You know, so
And it becomes a contract
It becomes a
problem.
contract
So
problem.
like,
And also an education, like
correct.
you said.
So
Like,
yeah, you
as
gotta
a seller's
educate, correct.
agent, I'm
Right.
gonna sign a contract with 3%. But
Yeah.
I'm going to put
we may have to pay
a
up to
paragraph
3%
there that,
for the
that,
buyer.
that in order to make the deal happen, you might have to cooperate and pay 3%.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Or 2%.
That makes sense.
It depends on the individual.
it's just
And I guess
transparency.
that's a negotiating thing. How much are you willing to pay the buyer's agent? Like we negotiated our 3%, right? You can go up to 3% or 2% or whatever, and then I guess
And the funny thing is that everyone's talking about, like, is this going to affect pricing? Is it going to be...
That's what I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Because this whole New York Times article, which I read just because I don't know why, but
You have a subscription, by the way?
I do, but
Yo, bro, you don't give me the discount?
just because I read everything. But so I read this Times article that said that this and this is why my comment to you, right, was, but they're saying that this is going to pave the way for more inventory, lower housing prices. How I never understood how they reached that conclusion, but maybe you guys as professionals, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's what I
Has
was.
Just-
absolutely no
okay.
impact.
I'm just going to ask. Everyone here owns a home?
Yes.
Yes.
When you go to sell your home, do you want to lower your price because you don't have to pay a commission, or you still want max dollar?
Max
Max
dollar.
dollar.
So this idea that the prices are going to be lower don't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense. So why is that rhetoric out there?
And guess what? As a realtor, I'm going into the meeting with the confidence of this is the market, this is what you can get. I want to do even better because there's low inventory.
Right.
It's just not happening. This is
Right.
not.
There's zero correlation between real
Right.
estate commissions and home value. Zero correlation.
or even
Zero
inventory
whatsoever.
for that matter, right? Like even inventory for that
Yeah,
matter.
and listen, the reason why people are
Take
not
that,
selling
New York
is
Times.
because- dude, it makes no sense. Think about it. I mean,
I wish I can pull the
You know,
article up
I
and-
want to bring something back though. You did say like, how is the industry going to change, in regards to now this new direction of working with the listing agent only and the buyer's agents basically being cut out.
Right.
How is the industry going to change? Now, do I think AI is going to change the industry to some capacity? 1,000%.
Right.
Do I think there's other platforms that are going to be introduced to the industry that are going to allow agents to operate better? 1,000%. And AI is part of that.
Right.
So like I'm a team. I have a team of agents. I have an operations manager. I have a junior agent. I have other people that literally take care of the day-to-day for me. Now, I know I can hire a virtual assistant for way less than what I'm paying my current assistant. But I like knowing that I have someone who I can speak to on a daily basis, do team meetings with, be involved, be a part of it all. Okay? And that person becomes an asset to me.
Absolutely.
A virtual assistant is an asset, but it's not an asset that you can like depend on.
It's a paper push.
It's it. It's
Right.
someone that you can just have to make sure that anything that basically, if your team drops the ball for any reason, that virtual assistant can probably handle those little things that you don't want to deal with.
Question I have for you. So what happens when you have a competitor using AI starts biting into your market?
So a competitor is what exactly, right? It's
Like-
another agent
Another,
or a brokerage.
But let's say
so let's call it.
using
Let's,
AI.
Can't necessarily be AI.
I don't think he said he wasn't going to use AI.
I'm
he's
saying, but
really-
like because it's like everything's pointing that way. Unfortunately,
well, I think if you
think
don't
it's how
if
you
you
use it.
don't implement AI into your business,
You're lost.
You're setting up a failure.
you will definitely fail at some point because it's like anything else. You have to continue innovating as a businessman. We're all entrepreneurs to some capacity. Okay,
Except for me, but
well, I don't know. I'm kidding. But listen, we have to obviously reinvent ourselves, or we're not going to bring any value to what it is that we're doing. AI is going to make life easier. So, like for example, right now I'm here. My phone is probably getting emails, probably getting messages, probably getting a whole bunch of things that I'm not responding to. AI
can respond.
can be integrated and trained to respond to your emails, to respond to your text messages, to respond to whatever it is going on while you're literally away doing other things.
Why am I not doing that? I told you to let
And,
me
and what happens? And I think
This is
what
not an
happens-
AI conversation.
no, but I think that this is important for the real estate industry specifically because with those increased efficiencies, right, it allows you to actually begin to adjust your margins a little bit, right? Because you're bringing in something that you're eliminating a role, theoretically,
Yeah.
right? a salary,
Maybe.
Or you're
Enhancing.
enhancing
an experience, which creates more
Productivity.
value.
Yes.
So there's just a lot going on there that it has yet.
So
to
he
be
saw it from a
determined.
different perspective. You say you're eliminating a role, so maybe I could lower commission. I'm just right.
It's just there's different ways
there's
you
different
can
ways.
take it.
Or I can say I'm enhancing
Look,
a role.
It's a perspective.
So I think it's an enhancement.
Yeah.
I think that, for example, my assistant spends way too much time putting newsletters together and having in the calendar that she has to send out this and that on a weekly, monthly basis, whatever it is. You could easily train AI to do that.
Right.
So why not make AI do it and have your assistant do something else that's more productive,
valuable,
more
right.
valuable?
Well, what I'm saying is everyone has a choice. We're entrepreneurs, right?
Correct.
So you could either do other things to create
Right.
more bit, or I mean, some brokerages have gone the discount brokerage route, which
Right.
we've seen them all fail pretty miserably.
Work
right?
on
Most of
volume,
them.
though, right? The idea, the concept is to work on volume.
in theory works,
Right.
but at the end of the day, it doesn't. You can't execute it on the ground. So it
So
really
it's funny.
kinda
It's
doesn't work.
funny. When I got into
know
new
what I-
development, the only way to get the first project was to be a discount broker.
Of course.
I made 1%, which was horrific, but it got me in the door.
Right.
Got me my first 10-unit project. At the end of the day, I didn't know what my value was because I was too green. So that's something that's big. I feel like this is actually going to push agents that have zero interest in actually being a good agent. Because a lot of agents out there that just know enough people or they do the bare minimum and they get business.
Right.
And there are agents out there that really, really want to do well and exceed and excel, whatever, but they can't because it's just cluttered with so many agents out there. So I think that this is going to definitely hurt a lot of the agents that had the money to buy leads or had some contacts that
The
fed
paper
them
pushers.
referrals and the paper pushers.
You want to mention some names because we're in the street.
No, no,
I'm
no,
just
no,
kidding.
That's part of it.
It is part of it.
All right, guys. I know we went over, so final thoughts. Anybody that has final thoughts? It doesn't have to be
Jelly,
everybody.
Jay, I'm out.
Final
I'm
thoughts?
I'm out on this.
Reyes, I think you need a final thought on this one. This is
I feel like you've been formulating
this
a
is
final thought.
yeah. Come on.
You
bro.
and Josh have
You guys
been.
are calling me like a
I know
hog.
Josh.
Josh
I'll
ain't
let
doing.
Brad
All right, so I have a final question then for me.
Yeah,
Okay,
one.
let's do it.
Why don't you let Josh ask?
Nah,
the
let
question?
Ray.
Oh, no, he
go
said
ahead.
no.
I passed. Go
He
ahead.
just passed, but okay, Josh.
Go ahead.
Final thoughts, bro.
I don't have a final.
That's exactly what he said when I said, okay, so I'll ask a final question. So my final question is, so what do you think? Is this a positive thing for the real estate and real estate market or a negative thing?
I honestly feel that it's disrupting the industry in a very negative way at the current moment. I think it's going to eventually figure itself out and it's going to be fine.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest. But at the end of the day, no. I think it long term it's a good thing. It brings back that the code of ethics and trust in regards to how you operate as an agent. It gives that confidence back to the sellers as well, that they're not being taken advantage of. Right. I obviously buyers at the end of the day right now are probably confused and lost in what's going to happen, how they're going to move forward. But I do think that sellers are going to be more than open to work with their listing agent to pay a buyer's agent as long as it's very clear from the beginning. The problem is that we had all these buyer agents out there trying to make money. They probably got upset. They probably complained to their to the buyer saying that I this
Can't help you. I'm not
this
gonna get
broker only
commission.
gave me 1%. This is a waste of my time. Blah 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 blah. I'm sure it happened.
Right.
And that's why this all came up. And the sellers are probably like, "What do you mean? I'm paying 6%." So
I got you.
I think
I
it's
got
good
you.
for the business at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is this: do you foresee, probably in terms of the population, right? Do
Yeah.
you foresee most of the population being affected, the first-time home buyers? And how do you think they can actually remediate that?
So I think it's definitely going to affect first-time home buyers because they're already lost when they go to look for
You're
a
in the
house.
short term.
Yeah, they need all the help you can give them. So by confusing them, and if you're not an experienced agent, or you're not, listen, not every agent's a good salesperson. Not every agent knows how to talk to somebody. Like you got to build trust with the buyers, with a buyer. A seller is a different type of a relationship. Yeah. A buyer, you have a short window to build trust, to make them be trustworthy of you, to give you their business. Because at the end of the day, they're trusting in you, they're confiding in you to help them buy their first place, which is a huge investment for most people.
But what would you say for the buyer that just stumbles upon an agent? And I say this to say Redfin is an example of there's a number at the end of a listing.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know how it works on the agent side. Maybe the agent pays to be on that or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the listing agent. Right. But there's a number at the end. If you want more information on this property, call me.
Correct.
And you call the number. Right. And a first time home buyer is just looking at houses online because I think most people do.
So,
and they call this person.
It's actually a great question. Oh
Right. And they call this person. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm your agent. Right. Yeah. And I had an issue. Remember, I have my realtor, but I called and then they said, oh, well, you're coming to see this property. And your listing agent's not here. I was like, I don't, that's not my agent.
Yeah, but look what's bizarre. I mean, when you sold State Street, right?
Yeah.
The buyer came straight to him.
The buyer came straight to me.
Straight to him.
And I don't know what happened.
That was interesting.
We did like 2-3 showings and
then an agent appeared.
All of a sudden an agent appeared.
Yeah.
Right.
But whatever, that's a whole other story.
No, I know, but what I'm saying
A lot
is
of dirty world.
But that's how these.
But I like his question though.
Go ahead, go back.
Because he's basically saying, what does it really matter since I called for the listing and I got some random person who doesn't know the apartment or the house.
Right.
And they are just there literally as a showing agent.
Right.
Who does absolutely nothing and has no value.
Exactly. And then they say they're my agent.
So I love this. You know why? Because the reality is there's too many agents that bring zero value and they steal these buyers from us, the listing agents who obviously want to sell it direct. Now it doesn't really matter, but it makes our lives easier because we don't have to deal with that agent who literally did absolutely nothing.
Right.
So listen, I think it's actually going to push the buyer agents to be more informative and educated on the markets they're working. Because listen, for someone to bring real value, like when I was in the business, and I don't talk about this that much because, now
talk about it, bro. You in the street.
Now I'm a big developer agent and I work with investors. But
I wonder what you're driving now.
When I started, which one? When I started, all these buyer agents would literally have no idea what they're doing. And I'm like, I can't do the same thing. I got to be better. I got to be different. How am I going to secure these buyers? Because this is costing me money. I want to make money. I would literally, so this was part of the hard work. Every Saturday, Sunday, I would try to keep free for the open house hours. I would visit every building that was in the market that I was working at a buyer in. So I would visit every building, see the apartment, learn about the apartment, see the amenities that it's offering.
That's awesome.
Study the neighborhood if it was a townhouse, see what restaurants are in the area, what trains are in the area, what parks are in the area, what daycares if it was a big enough townhouse because they're gonna have families and kids. You have to educate yourself to a point where you bring so much value, they want to pay you more.
Right.
And that's what I did when I was a buyer's agent.
And if you don't know,
now you know.
Yo, we in the street.
It's a wrap, baby.